Hi, and welcome. Thank you for joining us for this Satori Software webinar, Building Your Bulk Mailer Services. Before we get started, give Kim and Corey a chance to settle in. I want to cover just a couple of very quick housekeeping items. First off, if you participate in social media, and Kim's nodding her head, I know that she's big into, it's Twitter, right, Kim? Yeah. If you participate in social media, you can connect with Kim and me and Satori Software, for that matter, via Twitter, LinkedIn, and on Facebook. The various tags and handles you're going to need will be listed at the end of this presentation. Next, this webinar is being recorded, and I will be posting this recording probably this afternoon up on the SatoriSoftware.com website. So in the event that you need to drop off or want to pass it along to somebody else or rehear something, it'll be up there for you. Next, and this one's really important, this is my favorite part of the whole webinar, it's the question box. If you look to the right-hand side of your screen, there is a question box there. And if you fill in that question box with anything, pretty much anything, I will then read those questions at the end of the webinar for Kim and Corey. And we really like to play that sort of stump Kim and Corey game. So feel free. Go ahead and put the questions in there. I'll collate those and pass them along at the end. Finally, this webinar is scheduled to last around 60 minutes. Now, this is an exciting subject for those of us here at Satori. We really like what we're going to talk about here. And when Kim gets excited about something, she talks a lot. And so we might run a little long, especially if we get good questions in that question box on the right-hand side. So if we run long and you have to drop off, like I mentioned, we will have this recording posted up on SatoriSoftware.com, and we'll go on from there. So let's go ahead and get started. And people you're going to be hearing from today, Corey Bragg, Director of Product Management for Satori Software. Corey, online with us?
I am. Hello, everyone.
Hi, Corey. Welcome. Glad to have you here. Next, Kim Mock, Senior Product Manager for Satori Software.
Good morning.
And this is an exciting subject for you, isn't it? You really like these things.
Yeah, it's going to be really fun to talk about data services today.
Fantastic. And I'm Rob Perrin, Director of Multimedia Marketing. I'll be your host and ringmaster today. So in the event that you do have questions, feel free to toss them into my box and I'll make sure that they get passed along. Kim, we're going to go ahead and get started here with an agenda. Why don't you take it from there?
All right. So we have a lot to talk about today. Data services is a really exciting new opportunity for a lot of mailers right now that gives you some new products that you can offer to your customers, or if you mail for yourself, some new ways that you can use data to really empower your mailings and really get a lot more out of them than you have before. So we're going to talk a little bit about these new trends that are happening in the direct mail space right now, and then we're going to go through an overview of all the data services that we have available here at Satori Software through the bulk mailer product. We'll go through how you actually use those inside a bulk mailer, and then we'll talk a little bit about what's next. So data services is kind of a broad area, and so we're kind of looking at a couple different areas. So we'd like to get some feedback from you on where we should go next, what data really is interesting and would be really valuable to you as a user.
I wanted to mention, Kim, data services, that's an addition. That's something that was added to bulk mailer not that long ago.
That's right. So this is something that we added just a few years back, and it's been a slow, we've been seeing a lot of customers as they adopt data services really do some really interesting things with their mail. So we wanted to have this webinar today to kind of tell people about these data services so that you can see what's out there, what the possibilities are, and then you can kind of let your imagination go from there.
And I'm excited. This is a relatively new product, but it was sort of bulk mailer on steroids. And I'm super excited because this was the product that Satori hired me to start working on. As I worked my way up through the ranks here at Satori to this wonderful position I have now in this darkened room with the microphone, I worked on the technical side of data services, so I'm super excited about this one.
Yeah, and it's been a really interesting project to kind of see from the very beginnings of the ideas and how we built out the services within bulk mailer to now having customers use it and see some real value in their mail.
It's not a static product at all. This is going to demonstrate that.
Yep.
Cool.
Yep. Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about the landscape that we have today. even just 10 years ago, the way that you would do direct mail marketing was drastically different. It was kind of what you would consider to be spray and pray. So basically you have a bunch of mail, you would have a big list, and you would just send all of the same mail to all the people on your list and hope for the best. There wasn't a lot of measurement. There wasn't a lot of cross-channel marketing. There were a lot of things that were basically just throw it all out there and see what sticks. It's like testing spaghetti against the wall. See if it sticks.
People really do that?
My brother did, actually.
Really?
Yeah. So, so it's kind of this interesting change that's really been happening just over the last 10 years, where we used to kind of have this, okay, well, we have this big list we're going to send to everybody, but now we're starting to segment. We're starting to really understand our customers and understand what is really going to work for, a mom who's in her 30s isn't really going to be the same type of message that you want to send to a retiree. And being able to try these different types of marketing opportunities and do this A/B testing and all this stuff has really become a really big marketing push lately. So having the data, knowing your customers, and segmenting your message, changing that out over time is actually going to create more powerful and more effective marketing.
It was bottom line. I mean, postage is so expensive these days that you really have to make it count. You can't just throw the mail out there and hope you get a response. You need to know who you're hitting. You need to get them with the right message, and you need to make sure you get results out of it.
Yeah, it's so true. And so one of the really interesting things is people really are measuring. So I had to include a Dilbert cartoon here.
You and your Dilbert.
I love Dilbert because
her office wall is decorated with Dilberts.
Yeah, and so it's really interesting because the old days where it was just, okay, did the mail go out? Is the mail, did the mail piece get delivered? That's no longer what people are measuring on. They're measuring on the results. And so it's not so much, okay, did we mail 10,000 pieces? No, the idea now is, okay, how much revenue can we attribute to this specific mailing? How much revenue can we attribute to our investment in social media? And because, we kind of went through the big .com booms and busts and the housing issues and everything. And so people are really a lot more careful about how they're going to spend their money.
You're saying it's not the thought that counts?
It's not anymore, because the thought for one segment of your customers is not going to resonate as well with another segment. So it's really about being able to take that information that you already have or that you can get through a service like our data services and actually be able to apply that, do some testing, see what messages are going to resonate with each group, and then actually apply that, and it really just supercharges that whole advertising medium. So it's a really interesting dynamic that we're seeing right now. The post office is obviously very involved in this. So a lot of the things that they have, as far as the new incentives that they have, the new promotions, all of the marketing. If you went to the National Postal Forum this year, was all around digital, big data. What can you do with big data? And that's really what data services is all about. It's about taking that information that you can get and then supercharging your mailings, supercharging what you're doing, and making it really a powerful message for your customers.
So this is mailing for the 21st century.
It is. It's a really new frontier, and it can be really exciting for those of us who jump on that bandwagon and offer that to our customers. So at this point, I'm going to hand it over to Corey, and she'll kind of go through some of the services that we have available right now.
All right. Thanks, Kim. So yeah, during this section, we're going to walk through the data services that are available through bulk mailer. And like Kim mentioned, we're really going to talk about not only what they are, but where the value is in terms of taking advantage of these services. So starting with the first one here, I'm assuming that you're all already familiar with the USPS Move Update or that NCOA link processing. But did you know that up to 20% of household moves are never filed with the USPS? So this is what our enhanced change of address service is really about. It's about leveraging data from credit firms, from magazine subscriptions, catalog houses, along with some other sources to identify those moves, that additional 20% that would otherwise be missed. So by adding the ECOA to your standard processing, you really can improve ultimately that deliverability of almost any mailing. And in particular, you can have quite a dramatic effect when your mailing is targeting more of a transient audience. So those would be your college students or maybe young adults that are kind of moving around a little bit more and might not be doing those USPS filings. But they still want to receive their magazines, for example. In addition, if you're receiving notices from your mailings that your recipients have moved without a forwarding address, or if you're running a move update already in bulk mailer, and those addresses are being identified as new address unavailable, these are also scenarios in which ECOA can provide help to expand the success of your mailing. And the last thing to really note about ECOA is that it includes 5 years of data. So this is expanding just beyond that 4 years of data that the NCOA link data set consists of. Okay, next slide. So the Suppression Suite, as marketers, you want to focus your direct mailing initiatives on those prospects that are willing and able to respond. So a key tool for achieving that goal is the Suppression Suite processing, which compares records against 3 different suppression scenarios. So the first one, it's a combination of do not mail lists. This includes the DMA choice, they call it the DMA choice Consumer Mail Preference List. And note that 3.5% of people are likely to be listed on that do not mail list. And then we also have a directory of federal and state correctional institutions to identify inmates. And then finally, there's records of deceased. Those are reported by the Social Security Administration. So in many cases, sending what's already unprofitable mailing pieces can actually additionally damage your relationship with potential or prospective customers. An example of that would be sending mail to the deceased can often cause some sort of distress to the family. So to be able to avoid those false moves. And then there's also advocates of that do not mail legislation. They can tend to be very vocal and really use every piece of that unwanted mail as ammunition to further legislation around the do not mail. Additionally, if you're a member of the DMA, that do not mail processing is actually required by your membership agreement, so something to be aware of and take advantage of. I guess to summarize, all in all, that Suppression Suite is really about keeping your focus, your marketing investment on those people who are receptive to receiving your message, and really thinking about taking advantage of additional budget that could be redirected to that more receptive audience. Next slide. So Apartment Append is about having correct residential unit numbers. It's really a foundation for good mailings. Given that 1/4 of U.S. housing is actually multi-unit buildings. And of that 25%, 8% of those multi-unit buildings are specifically buildings with 2 to 4 units. And the interesting thing there is that those units, those 2 to 4 units, buildings, their secondary numbers are not included in the data sets that are used by CAS processing. So upon completion of CAS processing, it's common for 5 to 10% of a mailing list to consist of addresses with missing or invalid unit numbers. So despite the fundamental importance we know of the unit data for deliverability, the USPS allows the addresses to be barcoded, which means they qualify for automation discounts. Unfortunately, while considered mailable, these pieces will almost certainly be undeliverable, either returned to sender or possibly discarded, which again impacts the success of your mailing. So in the case you're marketing to, let's say, college students or maybe more urban residents or even retirees that are likely living in apartments, townhouses, or even condos, the impact on delivery really could be huge. So the addition here is that this service can also improve your move update results. NCO link processing provides limited matching to incomplete addresses, such as those that are missing those secondary numbers or have invalid secondary numbers. So this apartment append service can really uptake your move update results as well. So lots of benefit there.
Yeah, and so for those of you who are familiar with the SuiteLink service that's available through standard CAS software,
sure.
This apartment append is actually really similar to SuiteLink. So SuiteLink will append an apartment or suite number to a business address. This apartment append does the same thing with people. So it will match the name and address to the building and then append the suite number there.
In the old days, the postman would know the names of the occupants of an apartment building, and so you could send it to the general address, and then the Smiths would get their mail because he knew that. I take it in this day and age, not so much.
Yeah, actually, I think it was about 5 years ago, there was a memo that went out to all the carriers that specifically stated that while you can, as a carrier, you can actually know that John Smith is going to live in apartment 2B, and you can deliver it that way, but they're no longer required to. So previous to that memo going out, they were actually actively encouraged to find that final recipient of the mail, to know where all of their recipients lived and make sure that they understood which apartments they were in. They actually don't do that anymore. And with the turnover, they have a lot of people who are retiring. They have a lot of routes that are changing. So there's a lot of new people on the same route. And so that a lot of that knowledge has been lost, and it's not really being encouraged as much as it is anymore. So this apartment append kind of makes up for that knowledge drain from the post office.
And I would expect people change residences more frequently these days. You don't have the same person that lives in the same address for their entire life that much anymore.
That's right. Yeah. So like Corey said, I think this is a really important feature for getting that move update information.
Okay, so ahead of household, it helps to improve direct marketing response rates with a more accurate personalization, really. So this service can be a particularly benefit to increase those open rates by identifying the individual in a household instead of using that more generic current resident tag. The other benefit of head of household, it can be useful in situations when the product or service is typically preferred by a specific gender. So not only does the service identify the primary contact for that specific address, it will also attempt to append the gender for that person as well. A note on the head of household processing, the typical match rate is around 68% on an input list. So that's a pretty nice match rate on that. Okay, next one. And finally, the last service that we'll talk about in this section is walk sequencing. So walk sequencing data can dramatically lower the cost for geographically concentrated mailing. So those mailings that are targeting a specific zip code or potentially a neighborhood. Specifically, these are the cases where you would be likely running a carrier route, or you would be running a carrier route pre-sort in bulk mailer. So mail sorted for standard mail with that walk sequence data will qualify for high density rates, and that's if there are as few as 125 pieces on a carrier route, or even lower saturation rates. And here, if it's delivered to more than 75% of all of the carrier's stops, or 90% of all residential stops. So walk sequencing can deliver some really great value, even if only part of your mailing qualifies. So for standard letters, the savings could range from approximately a half cent to a full cent a piece. And then for standard flats, we're looking at about a half cent to close to 2 cents per piece on some of those discounts.
It starts to add up, doesn't it, Corey?
Yes, that starts to add up very quickly. So That's the overview of the current data services that are available with bulk mailer. I believe Kim's going to give you a little walkthrough in terms of how to accomplish, take advantage of some of these data services in bulk mailer, and then we'll come back and talk about additional data services that we're looking at to drive some additional value to you.
Now, I have to ask him, since I worked on the product, I know better, but sitting out there, this sounds really powerful, and powerful things are complicated and difficult to use.
Not necessarily.
Okay, I assume you're going to talk about that because I'm sitting here thinking, this is so cool, but I know better.
Yeah. And it really could be complicated, and in some cases, in some implementations of this type of a service, it can become very complicated. However, in bulk mailer, we've actually simplified the process for how you get this data and how you can segment it. So let's take a look at how to use bulk mailer to access some data services, and we'll kind of go through a little walkthrough of submitting a job through bulk mailer for data services. So the first thing that you'll need to do if you're ready to use data services is to create an account. So we do have an account system that works through our data services, and it just kind of keeps track of the management of everything here. So data services is actually available in your address quality tab. It's right there at the bottom, really easy to find. And the first time you go in, you'll need to create an account. So first you'll just fill in all of your contact information here, and there is a terms of service, so you'll need to agree to those terms. And then at that point, once you've filled all that information out, you'll be given a user ID and a password. So you don't even have to call into Satori Software. We will set up your account directly through the product. You could do it right now if you have two screens and you want to continue watching the webinar. So it's real easy to create an account. And once your account is created, then you'll go back into the data services wizard, and then you'll fill in your user ID and your password there, and it can save it for you so you don't have to remember all the gobbledygook of letters and numbers there. And then it's just a simple question of selecting your services. So Corey walked through what each of these services are, and you can just select which ones you'd like to use for this mailing. So
can you do them all?
You can. And so what'll happen is we actually have an algorithm that's done on the server side. So if you select multiple services, we'll actually apply them in a logical order. So for example, if you're using apartment number append and ECOA, it doesn't make a lot of sense to do ECOA until you have your apartment numbers. So we make sure that the order in which we apply each of the data services actually makes sense. We actually run a quick CAS certification. Well, it's not CAS certification, but we run it through the CAS certified software before you actually run it through anything, just to make sure that everything's standardized, that we're getting the best value, the best data back from this whole process.
Because it doesn't make any sense to put apartment appends onto the incarcerated list.
Yeah, that doesn't make a lot of sense, does it?
Cell 3B. You just don't mail to that.
And I'm pretty sure NCOA doesn't have that data in there anyway. So you can select multiple services. It says right here exactly how much each of these cost. I do want to make a quick little note here about the walk sequence service there. You'll notice on this screenshot that it says unlimited subscriber. So we do have the pay-as-you-go option for walk sequence, but we also have an unlimited option. So if you're interested in that, contact your account manager here at Satori Software, because if you do a lot of walk sequence jobs, you do a lot of saturation mail, high density mail, you can actually sign up for an unlimited service just like you do for Move Update Today for NCOA. And then
you can run walk sequence all day.
You could run it on every list, and then you could get that really deep postal discount, and you could apply that to all of your customers, which is a really great value add, because then they're getting that best postal discount, and they're going to want to come back for more. So you go through, you select which services you want. We have 5, so it takes up 2 pages here. And then once you've done that, then you're going to get a summary of what the cost of this is going to be. So the cost for this job is about $26. You can pay for it in 2 different ways. So we have a credit system for data services, so you can use those credits that have been prepaid to Satori, or if you'd like to, you can just pay as you go using a credit card. So
doesn't get any easier than that.
yeah, again, it's one of those things where you don't necessarily have to call into Satori to make this happen. This is something that you can do directly through the software. And in fact, there's that purchase credits button right there on the screen. If you want to use credits, you don't want to use that $75 minimum fee, then you can purchase the credits directly through the software as well. So it's pretty straightforward as far as payment goes, and we handle all that stuff on the back end there.
How are the credits purchased? Can I choose the exact number, or are they in blocks?
Generally, you'll want to purchase them in blocks because, and then of course, based on the amount of volume that you're doing and everything like that, the cost for those will be slightly different. So you'll want to contact your account manager to see if you have the volume to get a discount for those. So after you've selected how you want to purchase this data services job, then you'll enter in your email address. And that's going to help to give you notification of how this job is processed through bulk mailer. So let's take a walk through what this looks like once you click Finish. So what'll happen is you'll get your progress dialog. It'll upload all of your records directly to the Satori Software servers, and we'll start processing them in the back end. Now, one of the things that I do want to note is there is that hide button where you would normally have a close button there. And what you can do here is if you have started a job, sometimes it can take, up to a half an hour or an hour, depending on the size of your list and what the load is on the servers and all those lovely variables. We don't want you to be locked out of bulk mailer while you're running a data services job. So what you can do is you can kick one off, get all the data uploaded, click that hide button, and then you can go off in bulk mailer and do other things. You can open another list, process it through. You can do other things on your screen, and then if you want to check back, you can just re-click on that data services tab, on that data services button there with your list open, and it'll just check to see what the status is, and it'll bring this progress dialog right back up.
I noticed this is a screen capture from business, bulk mailer business. Is this a business-only feature?
No, actually, it's available in both business and professional.
It is?
Yes. So it's available in both products, and the functionality is actually not different between those two products. So
Gotcha.
you can access the same functionality both ways there. So obviously, if you're using that hide button, you kind of want some kind of a notification of when your job is done. So what we actually do is once we've started the job, we actually send you an email to that email address that you entered in the wizard, and it'll tell you the list name and what the credit amount was and all this information. It also has a lovely little code name for the job, so if something happens and your internet connection is lost or something along those lines, you can contact support and they can look up your job for you. And then once your job is complete, you'll get another email saying that the job is complete and that it's ready to download. So at that point, if it's a big job and it's taken a while to process, you've gone off and done something else, then you can go back into the data services area and then it'll check and start downloading those results.
So I don't have to sit there the whole time. That watched computer never processes?
That's about right, yeah. So it's, nobody wants to sit and watch a dialogue spin around for a while, just trying to process.
Oh, sure I do.
That is a Zen level that I have not achieved. So once the job is complete, then it'll download all the results to your bulk mailer file, and then we also have some reports that are available. So you'll see I've got all my results that have downloaded for this job here. And then we have some reports. So the first thing is going to be your summary report. So that's going to show the job information, the reference number for support, how much I was charged, and then some details about the data that I got back.
So on that last slide, I wanted to point out the Suppression Suite, you suppressed 66 records. Mm-hmm. So that's 66 pieces of mail that I don't have to pay the printing on, mm-hmm. I don't have to pay the handling on, and I certainly don't have to pay the postage on.
Exactly.
66 pieces.
Yeah, and it's wasted money, right?
And this isn't a big list.
Yeah. So it really
immediate
can
savings.
Yeah, it's immediate savings, and realistically, even if you're a mail service provider and you're getting paid by the piece, this is a service for your customers.
Sure.
And so they're going to be measuring you based on
your efficiency.
The efficiency of
mm-hmm.
the mailing and what the actual impact is. And mailing to someone who either can't or won't respond is or even maybe hostile to your mail, that's just not good business.
So suppressing 66 pieces out of this relatively, it's not a huge mailing, and then the walk sequence covered 29,536, so I'm going to be getting the discount at that point. This savings could add up very rapidly.
Yeah, especially on those concentrated areas where you're saturating a courier route, you can see some significant savings with the walk sequence.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so we've got our data services summary. We also have a quick report that'll list out all of the moves that were found using ECOA. And so it'll show the old address and the new address, so you have that information. It'll also be saved to the database just like it is in NCOA, so you'll be able to grab that information if you want in an Excel format or something along those lines. And then also you can view this information and you can filter it and you can print it and you can export it just like you do with any other data that you have in Bulk Mailer. So what I've done is I created a view in the list views area of Bulk Mailer that kind of showed some of the results. And this is a bit of an eye chart. I should have zoomed in a little bit better there. I apologize for those of you with small screens. But we do have that do not mail column. We have the deceased column. We have a correctional facility column. Anything with a checkbox means that there was something found with that where, for example, someone might have been on the DMA do not mail list.
So you just improved my list.
Yeah.
My data just got better because of this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you can use that data to inform your decisions on what you do later on. So, you can select, we have that all deliverable records group in Bulk Mailer. It will actually take into account all of the information that was logged as part of your data services. So it'll actually exclude your suppression data, your suppression records from your list when you use that group inside of Bulk Mailer before you go and you do your pre-sort and everything like that. So it's that those little integration points that lead to a more efficient and more impactful mailing.
This just makes sense.
Yeah. So at this point, we've got all this data. We've applied it to our list, and we're able to make some really intelligent decisions. So at this point, I'm going to hand it back over to Corey, and we'll talk about kind of how we're continuing to evolve our data services going forward.
All right, thanks, Kim. All right, we can go to the next slide. So this is our roadmap in terms of additional data services that we're looking at expanding upon in the near future. So what I'm going to do is just kind of walk through each of the services briefly, but really the main purpose is in talking through them is to ultimately to get your feedback in terms of which services would be of the most value to you. So at this point, I really encourage you to use the chat to comment, question on the additional services. We're also going to have a brief poll at the end to get some feedback as well. So what is of interest to you? What would provide value to your organization? So the first one is international address correction. So this is really for those businesses or for those customer lists where that customer base is spread across multiple countries. So this international address verification and correction we have is available for 240 plus countries. So even if it's just a small segment of your list, to be able to do some address correction on those addresses as well, this is a service that we could provide. The next set are really around email and phone, really expanding support from that direct mailing marketing to more of a multi-channel or omni-channel marketing initiatives. So email validation append. This is where we'll look at the email, and it can be flagged due to potential deliverability issues, it's invalid, or potentially because it's potentially hostile. For example, the user is a known complainer or a troublemaker. The service can also identify emails that are spam traps or honeypots that are, again, hostile or dangerous to your business. And then when the emails are missing or invalid, the second step is to be able to append those emails as well to your customer contact data. The phone validation and append, it appends missing phones and validates existing. And it also will flag phones listed as do not call. The reverse lookup by phone, it's going to take name, It's going to take address or like location-based data. Oh, excuse me, I'm getting this mixed up. Let me reverse. It's going to return an address or a location based on a phone number. You can potentially add name information as well. This will strengthen the return rates on that reverse lookup by phone. So if you already have a phone number, this is going to return your address as well. The phone information is giving some information about the phone number, whether it's a landline or a cell phone or voice over IP. Is the phone connected or disconnected? Who is the phone provider? So it gives you a little additional information about that phone number. The address level geocoding, this is going to enhance your customer location data with specific latitude and longitude information. It's not quite rooftop, but it's address level, so it's going to give you somewhere midpoint of a street, essentially. And really what this is going to do is support those marketing initiatives where you're doing some geo-targeting. So targeting customers based on potentially their closest proximity to a physical location for promotions, as an example. The next one is customer enrichment. This is a good one, I think, in terms of expanding that marketing reach and really about expanding the understanding of your customers to be able to better target them, to be able to better message to them. So segmenting your current or prospective customer base and then variable message appropriately. So we have support, we're talking about support of various types of enrichment here, demographics, so this information specifically about the household and the household makeup, ages, number of occupants, that sort of information. We also have triggers in a person's life. So have they recently been married, a new baby in the house, recently divorced, recently a new driver in the house. So just triggers based on public data, various sources of data that kind of show how a person is moving through life. You can imagine those when the new mover, as an example, and you get all of those ads from potentially Home Depot or a lawn service or security companies. These are the sort of triggers that you could leverage for promotions, to trigger those promotions. And then there's also lifestyle sort of information in this customer enrichment domain. So this is around things like interests. Are they into cars, automobiles? Are they into charitable donations as a lifestyle information? And then we also have financials, income, 401k interest, different financial attributes of a customer as well. So there's a broad range of components that fit into that customer enrichment, but ultimately, again, it's about knowing that customer. So as an example, think about the customer that is over 55, financially with good credit. We know that they own a house versus that 22-year-old with no credit and no home. So as a financial organization, they could leverage this information to derive different messages or different introductory interest rates to those specific customers by just understanding them a little bit more. And the last area is kind of a newer area, kind of getting beyond the address, email, and phone and expanding into kind of that social media area. So being able to enhance customer data with social media identifiers like a Twitter ID or LinkedIn and Facebook IDs. So taking it a step further there. So those are some of the things that we're looking at in terms of the data services product roadmap. Again, very interested to hear from the audience in terms of interest in these various services, or additionally other services that we might not be thinking about.
Okay, Corey, we've kicked off your poll here, so we'll give folks a couple of seconds to respond to that, and go ahead and let them work through that. In the meantime, questions are coming in, so I think we're actually going to have some good ones. Which of the following data services would be of interest to you? And Corey has tossed those out: email verification or append, phone verification and append, address level geocoding, customer enrichment, or international address correction. Corey, can they choose more than one? I guess they can. It says please select all.
Yeah. Oh, sure.
Excellent. We'd love to get the results of this poll, so go ahead and toss that on in here. Kim, do we have to do anything with that poll? Just let it run.
I'm not sure exactly how that works.
This is new technology. We're experimenting. Corey said, can we do a poll? And we said, of course we can do a poll. Now let's go figure out how to do that. So it looks like it's running there. Let's go ahead and get started with the questions then. Actually, I'll tell you what, we'll skip ahead and do I have to end the poll?
Yeah.
I do I? How do I do that? Nobody knows. All right, well, let's go ahead and get started with the questions then. Are data services limited to addresses in the U.S., or is data service also extend to Canada?
So right now, the current data services that are available in bulk mailer are U.S. specific. However, as Corey mentioned, we do have a service here for international address correction. So it's not built into bulk mailer today, but that is something that we're definitely looking at for a future opportunity there. And so so that's something that definitely select that international address correction there in the poll, because that's something that that we're thinking about adding to bulk mailer. So, and then along with just Canadian addresses, that would have access to, like Corey said, the huge number of countries that we have data for.
How about unlimited ECOA and apartment number? Is there such a thing? Can I buy it all?
Unfortunately, at this time, we don't have unlimited options for those, but that is something that we would consider. We haven't gotten that to that point yet as far as the volumes to that we haven't had a lot of people ask for that, but that is an interesting way of getting the data. So we'll take that into account.
Okay, next one. This one says, what's the price? How much does this cost? What if I want to buy unlimited? What if I don't want to buy unlimited? How do I sign up?
How do you get there? So so each of the services has a different price, and that's because of the data that we get actually itself has a different price. So so you want to take a look at the prices in the data services wizard. So those prices are available right there, and then for the unlimited walk sequence, you can contact your account manager, and they'll be able to set the price that's right for you as far as that service goes. So so that's something to look at, and then yeah, so basically it depends on the service. So apartment append is fairly inexpensive. The head of household, just because it has more information, is a little bit more expensive there.
Okay, last chance here. I figured out how to close the poll, so I'm going to close the poll. If you've not yet made your selections, please do so. Next question, and this is great. I love this one. I am a benefits administrator, and I suspect there's a lot of them listening at this point. Members that are in a correctional facility would be something that we'd want to know about.
Sure.
Makes perfect sense. Will ECOA provide the correctional facility address details?
That actually is an interesting bit of information, and it really depends on how that mail was forwarded to the correction facility, or if it was forwarded. Obviously, NCOA Link actually does not forward to correctional facilities, so so there's no way to get that information out of NCOA Link. Obviously, if you have a correctional facility address, we'll be able to flag it using the suppression services there. But how that links into ECOA, that's kind of an interesting question. And I guess it really depends on how that person's mail was forwarded. So, for example, if they do have a magazine subscription that is acceptable at their facility, then yeah, we would be able to capture some of that information.
Interesting. Okay, so this one's fun. Little look at how the product gets made. Where's the data come from?
From a lot of services. And Corey, I think you can kind of dive into a little bit deeper as far as where this data comes from. But
yeah, so the sources of data, for any one service can be, and for the existing and for the newer ones, I mean, we're looking at anywhere from 3 to 30 sources of combined sources of information. So think about things like public records as a big one. just what's the amount of data that's available through the government and through public filings. This is a huge source of information. I mean, we mentioned things like the subscriptions, magazine subscriptions, warranties and deeds, and there's just a lot of available public and for purchase information that's out there. Every time you sign up at you're checking out at a store and they ask for your email address or they ask for your address, this data can be resold. So it's coming from all over the place and then kind of combined, going through data quality processes, deduplication processes, just like a typical you'd run your own customer list. But these are just massive sources of information. We're talking about billions of records for the various services, but each is different depending on what specifically is being sought after.
And Corey, I know from my experience with the product that Satori is always seeking out new and better data sources.
Yes, that's true. I mean, we work with a variety of vendors, third-party data providers, to get the best solution. So we never just take the first. We definitely go through a POC process of several vendors and find the best of breed. Best of breed in terms of the results, your best match rates, but also we're looking for the most cost-efficient as well. So balancing the two so that we can add the best value to our customers in the end.
Now, there's a bunch of questions coming in about the Suppression Suite. Maybe we can talk for a minute about how that works, specifically deceased. They're wondering where that data comes from, how long it persists. How does the Suppression Suite work, and how would you use it?
So Suppression Suite, I mean, where it comes from, and then maybe Kim, if you want to add too, in terms of the deceased specifically, I mean, this is public record. So as I mentioned, it's the Social Security Administration, public records around the deceased. Other ones is we're talking about the correctional institutions. We have lists of those to match the addresses against. And then in terms of that do not mail, there's a couple of different do not mail opt-in lists that are kind of combined, but the main one is really that DMA choice source.
Excellent. Okay, so there are a whole bunch of questions coming in about pricing and wanting to know specifics. I have this sort of business, but not that sort of business. I do this, but I don't do that. I'd like to offer this, but I don't want to offer that sort of thing. What's your best advice for somebody who wants to understand the specifics of their business and how the data services system would work for them?
Yeah, so I mean, really at that point, we would want to have a one-on-one conversation with you as far as how you want to put together your data services offering. And so, for some companies, it would make a lot of sense to run ECOA and walk sequence, or in another case, you may want to run Suppression Suite and the Apartment Append. And it really depends on really what your business needs are and what your volumes are. So what we would recommend is to contact your account manager here at Satori Software. So we've got the number here up on the screen. You can also contact us via email, and we'll set up a time to talk you through each of these data services and really to understand what your needs are, and then also get the right pricing and make sure that if you're, say, for example, purchasing data services credits, that you purchase the amount that's going to be right for you, so you're not running out in the middle of a job.
And one thing that this webinar is one of our series of getting the most out of bulk mailer webinar series. And one of the things that we've been stressing here is that one of the nice things about calling that a Satori sales number is that they're not going to try to sell you something you don't need.
Exactly.
They work very hard to try to match the right products and the right services with the customer. So as a result, feel free to call, get an analysis, talk about, hey, I'd like to do this. Is it possible? Could I do this? They'll work with you on it, and they're not going to sell you something you don't need.
Yeah, exactly.
Consistently.
And the other thing I might encourage is just if you have a list, you can do the pay by credit card. You could try out a service and see what kind of results that you get. If you want to do kind of a test on your own, this could be a good option as well.
Exactly. That's kind of a
It's
try.
easy to do.
Yeah, it's super straightforward, super simple. Again, call our sales folks know exactly what they're doing on this so they can kind of walk you through what the best match is. And along the same lines, the getting the most out of the bulk mailer series, we've got another one coming up Tuesday, July 14th. Kim, that's next Tuesday, right?
That's
That's
this coming
coming up
Tuesday.
fast.
Yep.
And it's going to be you, me, and our good friend Bob Shimmick.
That's right.
And we're going to talk about the add-ons within bulk mailer. And this is kind of cool because people get bulk mailer and they get settled in and they use these things, they use it the way they use it. And I'd be willing to bet a lot of folks have never even clicked on that data services tab.
That's right. Yep.
But there's this whole suite of add-ons that you can put on that make bulk mailer even more extensible. There's all kinds of cool things you can do. I'm almost as excited about that one as I was about this one. But next Tuesday, feel free to sign up via the SatoriSoftware.com website. But we're going to be exploring these add-ons, and we're going to talk about the individual add-ons. And then it turns out that some of them, if you bundle them together, you get the sum of or the total is greater than the sum of the parts. So it turns out that you can actually bundle some of these, and this one go together. And when you put this one and this one together, it makes sense because you get this. And so I'm kind of excited about this one. I talked to Bob earlier, and this is his favorite one. This was the one he suggested. It's like people don't know about the add-ons.
Yeah, it'll be fun to kind of walk through them with everybody and to kind of show the additional functionality that you can unlock just by purchasing an add-on.
I'm excited because bulk mailer is, like I say, you get into it, you start using it, it does what you need it to do, and you don't even think to click on these other tabs and learn about the other stuff. And there might be huge revenue, huge upside opportunities for a business.
Yeah, and this is really the best time to start looking at that information. We're just starting to get into that fall mailing season, and it's and once you're in the fall mailing season, all you can do is
the heat of the moment.
Your head's down and you're just getting the work done. But I like to think of July as kind of the reset for the mailing industry. This is when you think about your processes. This is when you think about your software and the services that you're offering, and see what you can do to make improvements, little tweaks, that will make the fall mailing season just that much more productive.
And with this webinar series that we've got, we do want to expand this. So if there are things you would like to have us talk about, Kim or Corey or Bob or whoever else we can pull in, we've got these smart folks at our disposal. We'd be happy to bring them in and talk about things that you'd like to hear about using bulk mailer. I'd like to be able to do this, or does it do this, that kind of thing. Who knows? Maybe there's a webinar in there. So feel free to send that our direction. Now, on behalf of everyone here at Satori Software, I would like to thank Corey Bragg. Corey, you're coming in from, you're in La Crosse, Wisconsin, is that right?
That is correct.
Thank you so much for dialing in today. And Kim Mock, Senior Product Manager in the studio. Thank you. Always a pleasure.
Thanks, Rob.
Excellent. Thank you for joining us today. Please take a moment to fill out the brief survey that you're going to be offered at the end of this presentation. We'd like to use that survey to improve our webinar series, so feel free to fill in the comments section. We want to hear it all. As I mentioned, this webinar will be available in its entirety in the webinar section of SatoriSoftware.com, and I will take that recording and we'll have it posted up by this afternoon. So if you'd like to go back and review, see some of the screenshots, or however you'd like to go about it, it'll be waiting up there for you this afternoon. For Satori Software, I'm Rob Perrin, the Director of Multimedia Marketing, and once again, I would like to thank you for attending this webinar. On behalf of all of us here at Satori, I would like to wish you smooth mailing ahead.